Welcome to the Law School Toolbox podcast. Today, we're talking with ex-BigLaw recruiter Sadie Jones about the process of getting, or not getting, an offer at the end of your time as a summer associate. Your Law School Toolbox host today is Allison Monahan, and typically I'm here with Lee Burgess, my co-host. We are here to demystify the law school and early legal career experience so that you'll be the best law student and lawyer you can be. We're the co-creators of the Law School Toolbox, the Bar Exam Toolbox, and the Catapult Career Conference. I also run the Girls Guide to Law School. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review on iTunes. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can always reach us via our contact form on lawschooltoolbox.com, and we would love to hear from you. With that, let's get started. Welcome back. Today, we're talking with ex-BigLaw recruiter Sadie Jones about the process of getting or not getting an offer at the end of your time as a summer associate. So let's start off with the basics. How does this process work in theory?
So usually there is a summer associate committee that kind of monitors the summer associates as the summer goes by and keeps track of reviews of work and any kind of feedback on behavior or interactions with people or positive or negative feedback. And then at the end of the summer, they collect all this data and have a meeting and decide about giving offers or not giving offers to the summer associates.
Okay, and what does it mean to get an offer?
So an offer normally would come when you're a 2L, and it's an offer to return as a full-time associate after you graduate from law school.
Okay, and that can also be after a clerkship or something like that.
Yeah, they're usually flexible. If you have a clerkship or let's say you want to come back for a year and then go to a clerkship, they're going to try to work with you on that.
Okay. And what are some other possible outcomes if you don't get this offer?
So there is the cold offer, which I have actually never worked at a firm that gave cold offers.
Okay. What does that mean?
But a cold offer would be an offer in writing to come back, but they would tell you between you and the firm that they don't actually want you to come back. So it's essentially saying, we're going to give you this offer so that if you go out into the legal marketplace, you can say, I have an offer from this firm that I was a summer associate at, but they don't actually want you to come back.
Right. And these are, they're pretty under the table. I mean, these happen. I mean, we'll talk later. I actually got one. But everybody kind of pretends they don't happen. And what's the point of them? Like, why would a firm do this?
So I think that a lot of firms think it's sort of the nicer way to no offer somebody, because at least you can tell other firms that you did have an offer. Mm-hmm. Most of the places I've worked have felt like we're going to be honest about it either way. And it's very hard to not give somebody an offer. And being on this side of it, the firm side of it, it's a painful process to go through. The fact that you're going to give somebody possibly a black mark, going forward in their career. But when we would talk about it, it was just, do they deserve an offer or not deserve an offer? And is it fair to the people who got an offer that you're going to give an offer to someone else who you feel like didn't deserve it? The cold offer really does give some more options, I guess, to the summer associate in terms of their future.
Right. Well, I mean, the flip side of it is it also can make the firm look better because it allows them to report a higher offer rate than they actually gave.
Correct. And I've been at a lot of firms where we did give, let's say, one no offer during the summer.
Yeah.
But I would say most firms either give all offers or give all offers / cold offers so that they can say they have 100% offer rate.
Yeah, exactly. So I think people have to be a little bit skeptical when they see these offer rates. I mean, sometimes people, when they're choosing which firm to go to, are like, oh, well, this one had a 100% offer rate and this one only had a 95% offer rate. And it's like, you know what? You don't actually really know what's going on behind the scenes. So something just to be aware of. And then obviously, as you mentioned, you could get the no offer, which is literally like, we don't want you to come back.
Correct. And like I said, I've been in quite a few hiring committees where that's the end result. And it is very difficult because I will say that the firm wants everyone to get an offer. When you walk in the first day, they expect every summer associate is going to leave with an offer.
Right. And I think sometimes people have a misimpression about that. They think it's kind of like a Survivor type thing where they have to prove their worth and, only a certain percentage of people are going to get this offer. But I think it's worth, pointing out that like the firm doesn't hire you unless they want you. They think that you're a good fit and they want you to succeed. So it's not like you have to go out of your way to, go above and beyond to get this offer. It's kind of the expectation, right?
Absolutely. I think you kind of have to go above and beyond to get a no offer at most firms. You have to really stand out as having made some really big mistakes.
Yeah, or the firm has to be incredibly disorganized and have two partners thinking you're working for them. But that's a different story. We'll get to that later. All right. So what can people do as they're finishing up the summer to ensure that they maximize their chance of getting an offer? I mean, there's this assumption you're going to get one. Hopefully you've been doing pretty decent work. What can they do, or what have you seen people do that really jeopardizes their chances at this point, kind of finishing out the summer?
So I would say that you should never be in a situation where it's, let's say, your last week of work and you're not sure if you're going to get an offer or not. You should have had a midsummer review. You should have gotten feedback. That's the responsibility of the firm to kind of give you messages throughout the summer that you need to fix certain things. Mm-hmm. So there really should never be a case where it's the last week and you don't know, or you feel really unsure about it, or you feel like you've gotten no bad feedback, but you're still worried about it. But I would say in terms of the end of the summer, make sure that you're wrapping up all your assignments, make sure that you are talking to people, that you're leaving an impression that's positive, that if people are asking you to do like farewell lunches and dinners, that you're trying to fit that in. But really the most important thing is that you don't leave anyone hanging. Mm-hmm. I think that is a way that you can make yourself look bad right at the end, like not finish something and have to have an associate finish it for you after you leave. I've seen that.
Yeah, I've had that happen as an associate, and you're like, really?
Yeah,
you could have burned the midnight oil one night to get this done. Come on.
Yeah, that should just never happen. So I would say be really organized and don't take on too much at the end that you feel like you may not be able to finish.
Right. I think from the associate perspective, I think documenting things, making sure it's easy to find stuff, if you have Bates numbers on your documents or whatever, making a list of like, okay, this is the stuff that I worked on. This is where you can find it. Things like that just really go a long way towards leaving a very good impression instead of leaving the impression that maybe you're somebody you don't ever want to work with again. Absolutely.
And don't ever save anything locally on your computer. Make sure everything is saved to the system, because I've also seen that really annoy partners.
Right. Well, I assume they're going to wipe your computer after you leave, right?
Exactly. And then I have been in situations where something comes up a few months later, and then we call the summer associate and they say that, oh, I saved it on my computer. I thought you'd be able to find it.
Well, that's just terrible. That's terrible practice anyway. Like you should never, ever do that. I mean, never. You should never do that as an associate or a summer associate or anyone. Like never save something locally.
Absolutely. Unless it's something you actually don't ever want to see again.
Right, exactly. But then it's like, well, why are you saving it anyway on your work computer?
Good point. I would say just be organized and know what you need to do and how you need to get things done, so that also you're not working your last couple days. Like your last couple days should just kind of be wrap up and saying goodbye to people and cleaning out your office. It shouldn't be like frantically trying to finish an assignment.
Right. Cleaning off all the stuff that shouldn't be on your computer to begin with.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think, plan ahead, get organized, get your stuff done. And then, I think those last few days should ideally be for going around to the partners you've worked with, or maybe just people you've chatted with, being, oh, this is such a great opportunity. I'm so happy I was here. Like, I'd really love to keep in touch, blah, blah, blah.
And I think that no matter how you feel about the firm or feel about your summer, or whether or not you think you want to work there, you should always want to get an offer and want them to like you and want to leave things really positively.
Yeah, exactly. This is not the time to burn bridges you don't need to burn. You can always turn the offer down later, but it's definitely better to have it in your back pocket than to, go out with a flourish, a bang, and then, end up having to deal with the repercussions, which are not going to be very good.
Yep. And I've seen that happen.
Yeah. I mean, particularly because there's partying sometimes. I mean, I've definitely seen that get a little out of control. People showing up in the same outfit that they were in the day before when they've clearly partied all night and it's like 2 days before the end of the summer and you're like, really?
Yep. And I think by the end of the summer you're more comfortable with people, so you kind of let your guard down a bit. But what you need to remember at all times is that you're on a job interview, no matter where you are in the situation and people are watching you. And they remember and they say things to the hiring partner and the recruiter and all sorts of people.
Right. I mean, the recruiter's basically there to keep an eye on things and see who they might want to put in front of a client one day.
Yes.
All right. Well, what suggestions do you have for people who think that there may be potential issues, or they know that there are potential issues? Maybe the project they worked on didn't go very well. Maybe they had a personality conflict. Is there anything they can do to try to clear the air before this meeting happens and the offers actually go out?
Absolutely. I think number one, don't be defensive about your mistakes. Own them and ask them for feedback about how you could do things differently. Mm-hmm. So ideally, if something happened on assignment and assuming it wasn't the last assignment, I would ask for maybe more work with that person and try to show them that you could turn it around and know specifically what the issue was. So I would say own your mistakes and try to do whatever you can to show that you're willing to change and open to what their feedback is, and ask for feedback.
Mm-hmm. I mean, is this something you would recommend people set up a meeting with the recruiting coordinator, or like who should I talk to if I think there's an issue?
So I would assume that you have some kind of summer mentor who's an associate or a partner. Or usually one of each. I would probably go to your associate mentor and talk to them about it. Or I would talk to someone on the summer committee, or you can talk to the recruiter too. But I always think that your mentor is the best place to start because they're sort of supposed to be on your side about this. And I feel like most firms are going to pick, good, supportive people to be your mentors and someone going to be honest with you. So I would say to them, look, this happened, whatever your perspective is on it, and then whatever you've heard about it, and ask them what would they do in that situation.
Mm-hmm. But I assume this person is not going to be in that hiring meeting, probably.
Correct. But I've been at firms where the mentors actually are on the summer committee, and I've been at firms where they're not. But usually there's someone who's associated with the summer committee, so I feel like they can get the message across, and the message hopefully comes back to you. So some of this is on the firm, and that they're doing things properly. But I think for your part, all you really can do is ask for feedback and be honest and express how much you want to work there, and how whatever thing happened, that you're wanting to turn things around.
Right. And what about, I know at one of the firms I was at, there was a situation where a summer basically had behaved like really inappropriately towards a number of people at the firm. Other than not doing that, is there anything that person can do at the end?
I think that's hard because some of those people are not very self-aware.
Yeah.
I've been in similar situations where things just continued to happen.
This was like
giving feedback.
Yeah, this was a pretty clear pattern.
So I think in that case, you should probably prepare for what would happen if you didn't get an offer.
Yeah, I think this person actually even got fired like a few days before the end of the summer.
I've been places where that happens too.
Yeah, so I think the message here is don't be that person.
Yeah, kind of take a good look at yourself and what you're doing, and are you comfortable with
right,
how you're
and it's not just behavior towards other lawyers. It's behavior towards other, like anyone at the firm.
Or even, you're at an event and you're rude to, someone who works at the venue. Right. I've seen that happen. Or rude to, a waiter.
Yeah, this I think was a lot of hitting on secretaries and things like that, like very aggressively.
Yeah, don't hit on secretaries.
Well, it was actually, I think they got away with it as long as it was secretaries, but when they started hitting on other summers, it really escalated quickly.
Yeah, I think the key here is to remember it's a job interview at all times.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like if you want to date someone, ask them out after the summer.
Yeah, wait till later.
Wait till you have that offer in hand. Just focus on the offer.
Yes.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit more about cold offers. It sounds like you don't have a whole lot of experience with this, but I actually got one. And I wrote a whole post about it, so people can go and look that up if they want to hear more. I'll say in that case,
I know a little bit about it. And I actually had heard of a firm where somebody was given a cold offer and then accepted it.
Nice.
Which is technically you can do that. I think that's a bad idea.
Oh, it's a terrible idea. You should never do that.
And this person did not last very long. So if you are given a cold offer, it's not actually, an invitation to return to the firm.
No, definitely not. In my case, basically, the firm was so disorganized. They had assigned me 2 partners to work for like more or less full time, and I was already working like more than full time for one of them. So in a situation like that, and it turns out actually I spoke with another summer at the firm who was in this similar situation. And to be honest, that's just a really shitty situation to find yourself in, but I'm not really sure there's that much you can do to save it.
I don't think so either. And I think you also have to take the perspective that it probably wasn't the right fit either way. Like, no. Do you want to work at a place that did that to you? They obviously don't want to have you there. So I think you just have to say, okay, what is my plan going forward? How am I going to leverage this into another position? Because this isn't really a job offer.
No, exactly. That was my feeling the day that I left. I remember walking through the lobby on my final day as I was leaving and just thinking you could not pay me enough money to ever set foot in this place again. So,
and better for you to know that now than to work there for a few years.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, this is great because I never want to come back. But yeah, the whole scenario is really weird. I remember getting this call. I was like on a train visiting my friend or something. I got this call from someone on the hiring committee, and they're like, well, we really don't think this is the right fit for you, but we don't necessarily not want to make an offer, but we don't want to make one if we think you would accept it. So, what do you think about that? And I was like, let me be very clear. You could not possibly pay me to come back and work for you. You can just put me down as a definite no. And they're like, great, we'll put you down as a definite no.
Well, that seems like you cleared the air pretty quickly.
I remember just literally laughing, and I was like, you can just put me down as a no. Like, I think we can just agree this did not work out, and we're not going to move forward together. Thank you. But at the time, even though I was very clear I didn't want to work there, it still leaves you with this thing of like, well, what am I going to do next? And
I think the key in that situation, or not getting an offer, is that this is important and you're taking it seriously, but is not the end of the world, and you will have options.
Right. So if someone doesn't get an offer officially, or if they get a cold offer, how can they handle that? Obviously they've got to find a job, but is this a permanent black mark, and how are the two different?
I think absolutely not. It's not a permanent black mark. They are different in that if you don't get an offer, you don't have the piece of paper in hand that says you got an offer. On the other hand, another firm may not directly ask you. So you don't really know. Some firms don't even think to do it. I would, as a recruiter. Like
something you would at least ask about.
People sometimes just assume. So I am surprised. But I think what you need to do is have a plan and say, this is my story, and this is how I'm moving forward, and this is how I'm, going to portray the entire situation. And I think you just need to figure out like what your game plan is and where you're going to look for work. We had somebody once who ended up at a really great clerkship and is very successful now. So I think
that was my strategy. At the time you couldn't apply for clerkships until after your 2L year. So that was a pretty convenient option because you applied in early September. I knew I didn't really have an offer to go back to this firm. In my case, I'd actually summer at a different place my 1L year. So I had a 1L summer offer. I could have always gone there. I frankly liked them a lot better. But my strategy was like, well, I should just find a clerkship. And then after, during the clerkship, I can apply to firms, in a different city or wherever. I couldn't really decide where I wanted to work, but I figured that would give me the leverage to really, nobody's really asking about like my 2L summer at that point. Like, it's not so much of an issue.
Absolutely. I also think that, especially when the economy was down or things go up and down, there are more no offers, and there's lots of reasons for that. So I think what you really need to do is have a game plan moving forward. Where am I going to apply? I'm not going to let this get me down. This isn't going to make me not be a lawyer. So no, I don't think that this is the end of your legal career.
No, I think that'd be a gross overstatement.
But I had so many summer associates say things like that to me.
Right. Well,
so what I would say is, that's not the right attitude to take if you want to be a lawyer. You need to figure out what's next.
Yeah, I mean, that's just not a productive attitude in general. I mean, there are lots and lots of options. You don't have to work at a big firm.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming that other types of jobs probably care a little bit less. Again, if you're applying outside of the big law market, they might not even think to ask about an offer. What if someone wants to lie on their resume and say they got an offer when they didn't?
I would absolutely never do that, because maybe 9 times out of 10 they don't call the firm or ask, but maybe they do,
right.
And maybe the firm says something. So I think it's just never a good idea, because something like that will stay with you. Lying about it will stay with you more than not getting an offer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, have you seen resumes come in from someone who didn't get an offer? Like, how do people phrase that?
How do they phrase it on their resume
right.
if they didn't get an
offer?
offer?
Do they just put, I worked at X and then
Correct.
Wait for the firm to ask?
I've actually never seen anyone write no offer on their resume.
Well, I mean, obviously you're probably not going to put that, but I mean, do people who got an offer, do they put that? I mean, is there an assumption?
They do. Sometimes they don't necessarily. I think it depends. Sometimes also, like, they were a 1L. Although a 1L usually gets an offer to return. So I would always be suspicious if it didn't say offer to return on the resume. So I do think you need to say where you worked. I wouldn't leave it off your resume.
Yeah.
It's another thing people do. And all that does is have them ask you, well, where did you work during the summer?
Right.
And you can't say you didn't do anything. So I think what you really need to do is have your story prepared. So I wouldn't put it out there, because maybe they won't ask and maybe you never have to say it.
Yeah.
But I would make sure that you're never caught off guard with that question.
Right. I mean, I think you just put it on your resume. I was a summer associate at firm X in city X. These are the projects I worked on. And I mean, presumably when you're applying, you're going to have either in your cover letter or at least in the initial interviews, some reason that you're applying. I mean, it's more convenient if it's a different city or something like that. But I mean, I think it's fair. I mean, I think people understand that there's not always a great fit, your first summer associate experience. And so I think that's always a fair, like, well, this just wasn't the right fit for me because of X, Y, and Z. Hopefully those are objective. I'm more interested in litigation, which you guys are, better known for. And this was a more corporate firm or whatever, some sort of objective reason. And then if it really gets down to brass tacks and they're like, well, do they hate you?
I was going to say that.
Go ahead.
Well, and I think I agree. I was going to say fit would be my number one explanation. And usually that is the explanation for whatever reason.
Right.
It's not a fit. And same, I think practice group is another main area to go to. Yeah. I don't think you need to give a ton of information, and I don't think they're going to ask for a ton of information.
No, I mean, I think presumably they're interviewing you because they think that you actually are a good fit for their firm. I think the less you go into, the gritty details of what may or may not have happened in your previous summer that didn't go so well, probably the better for everyone.
Absolutely. I also think you have to focus on your credentials. Like, you probably had pretty good credentials that you got this summer associate job. So I think you need to focus on the positive and what you have to offer. Yeah.
You can always get back to fit. It just wasn't a good fit. Really, just wasn't a good fit.
Absolutely. And I think, maybe it does help you figure out like a place you want to be more.
Yeah.
Like a totally different kind of firm.
I think another thing is you don't, want to talk badly about the firm you worked at, even if it was not the greatest experience. Because this is a small community. People talk to each other. You may be talking to someone who is law school friends with a person that you're, talking badly about. Just don't do that.
I agree. And I think that they're not going to want to talk badly about you either.
Right. It's like nobody wants to deal with this. Everybody just wants it to go away. They want you to find a different job, go on about your life, and not bother them.
Yeah. And I think that is why some people do the cold offer, because they're hoping that person will end up in a better situation.
Yeah, sure. All right. Well, what if somebody gets an offer and, everything seemed to go okay, but they really weren't very happy at the firm and actually do think it's a bad fit legitimately for the long term? Should they turn that down initially, or how does that work? And then does it look bad to re-interview at other firms?
So I would say that you should hold the offer for as long as you can hold the offer while you're looking for something else.
And how long is that?
Because you don't want to give up that opportunity. Usually, I believe, according to the NALP guidelines, it's sometime in October, November. they tend to switch these dates.
Of your
and you
3
can
L
get
year.
correct. So
Okay.
you have a few months until you have to decide. And then if you're looking for a clerkship, even applying, you can get an extension.
Okay.
Also,
So
usually most firms will give you an extension if you tell them, you're still trying to figure things out. But what I would say is be honest. If you absolutely know you're never going to go there and you're pretty confident you're going to find another job, maybe you turn them down. Or maybe you tell them the truth. I'm not sure that this was the right fit. I kind of want to see what else is out there. They're not going to have a problem with that.
Really?
I don't think so. I would always rather somebody be honest with us.
Well, I mean, I assume you can kind of tell if they're dragging their heels and they're not really responding to your emails. I mean, that kind of looks worse.
Absolutely. And sometimes, you kind of know that they want a certain practice group, so maybe they say, I have these concerns. And then, the firm can go back and say, well, we know we can put you in litigation. Mm-hmm. So maybe they can deal with some of the questions you have. If it's just, personality or location or things like that, that can't really be changed. I also think maybe you want to move to a different city where they have an office. Like, you don't know what kind of options they're going to be. But I would immediately start looking for something else if you really feel like it's not the right fit. Mm-hmm. And you should have your story for the new firm, even if you got an offer, about why you're not taking that and why you're looking elsewhere.
And how bad does it look if someone takes an offer and then later doesn't show up at the firm?
So I think that's kind of worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. I don't think that makes you look very good. And I think, it hurts everybody because maybe that was a job one of your classmates could get at that firm. Maybe that firm was only hiring 3 people and it really affects their practice groups and where people get placed and workload and all of those kind of things. So I think you need to be on top of your career and knowing what you want to do. And I think if you accept the offer, you say, I'm going to be there for at least a year. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go, I'm going to show up on the first day, and I'm going to give it a shot.
And so what if you're applying for clerkships? I mean, that process is a little more amorphous now. I mean, can you accept the offer and say basically, well, I'm applying for clerkships, and if I get a clerkship, I would need to do that for a year? I mean, is that acceptable, or should you not accept at that point, kind of hold it? Like, how does that work?
I would probably talk to the firm individually about your situation. They would probably want you to not accept and just get an extension. Or that's been my experience, because usually they want you to, if you get the clerkship, ask the judge whether they're comfortable with you accepting the offer.
True.
So, the ethical considerations here matter a lot. And if your judge says they're not, they won't let you accept the offer. Usually they'll keep it open for another year.
Yeah, I think generally firms are pretty flexible. I think
judges want you to be at a clerkship.
Yeah, I mean, judges are
Absolutely.
usually pretty flexible. Firms are usually pretty flexible, and everybody understands that, like, this is a good thing for you to do for your career development. It's a good thing for you to do for your firm practice. The judges understand that you need to have a job after you graduate. I mean, after you finish your clerkship. Nobody wants this to fall apart for you, typically.
Yeah, it's in everyone's best interest that you have everything lined up. I've also heard that a lot of judges are looking for people with some experience. Sure. So I know people applying and getting clerkships in their 3L year, that will be for after they've worked at the firm for a year or two. And usually firms are fine with that too. I would say don't hide stuff like that. I have summer associates ask me, should I not tell them because is this going to make me look bad? Like, no, it's not going to make you look bad. It's going to make you look good that you got a clerkship, and they'll hope that you'll go and then you'll still come back.
Right. I mean, and that frankly can be a pretty good way to transition out of a firm after a year or two, which the firm also understands. But, they're hoping that you come back. And again, like, all of this is pretty standard. People do this all the time. You're not the first person to ever work at a firm for a year and then go clerk. I mean, a lot of people are doing that because I think the pay is better. And judges, like having someone with some experience. So all these things everybody's pretty flexible around them.
Absolutely. And I think that that sometimes the individual summer associate loses perspective, that everyone's so concentrating on them and what they're going to do. And the firm's really looking at everybody and all of their needs, and you're one person. You're not going to make or break. You're an incoming first year associate. So I would say you don't want to overshare, but you want to be as honest as you can, because that leaves everybody feeling better about the situation.
Right. I think people just want to know where they stand. I think I recall, it's been a while, but I think I had, the offer that I had for my 1L firm. They also, obviously wanted to know like what my plans were. And I think I just told them, look, I'm going to do this clerkship for a year. Let's be in touch during that year. I haven't decided if I'm going to go work in New York or if I'm going to work in California. So you're only in New York. So that obviously plays into it. I actually pre-clerked as a summer before my clerkship. So I had a 3L offer as well. And again, there was this conversation about, well, I want to be after I decided to move back to San Francisco and I really wanted to be in the city, and their office was in Redwood City or something, South Bay. And it seems crazy now. I was like, well, I don't want to commute. So, but they were thinking of opening an office in San Francisco. So, it was kind of this ongoing conversation about, well, this is what I'm looking for. And if you do this, I would be very happy to work with you. But if you don't, I don't want to work there. So just let me know what's going on. So it's kind of it was really a conversation on both sides about they hadn't decided where they were going to open their office and blah, blah, blah.
Well, and I think that goes along with what I was saying about having a mentor too. Whether it's your assigned mentor or someone you've sort of taken on, there should be somebody at the firm that you're keeping in touch with, that you feel comfortable with, and the firm will definitely try to reach out to you. So I would always keep up relationships. Even if you turn down their offer, I would keep up relationships because you said, absolutely. You don't know what's going to happen.
Right. And, and that conversation too was sort of, well, if a year from now or 2 years from now, you open this office and I'm still in San Francisco and still want to work with you, we could do that. So it's not always this cut and dried, like this is the only answer, that you've got to make your decision forever right now about everything. People are making choices on both sides.
Absolutely. And I think everyone wants it to be the right fit or, positive for everybody.
Right. Well, it's far worse to have a bad associate than a bad summer associate experience.
Completely. It's worse on both parts.
Absolutely. All right. Well, one final question. If you got an offer and you do plan to accept it or you've already accepted it, how much do your 3L grades matter? Can the firm pull the offer if you do badly? And what level of badly would count?
So I've never seen an offer pulled for that reason. So I think it's unlikely that they're going to pull your offer unless you fail out, don't graduate.
Right.
But I would also say that you certainly shouldn't slack off or give up or think it doesn't matter because they are going to see your final grades. I would always ask for a complete transcript. And it will raise some questions because people are going to see that transcript, probably the hiring partner or a mentor or someone in your practice group. And it's not going to make you look very good, right. That you didn't keep things up. So I think what you should do is try to maintain the same level that you maintained throughout the rest of, school. On the other hand, if you have a personal issue, something comes up, we had someone once in our 3L year, have to take some time off. Firms understand that. I would just talk to them about it. I did have someone whose grades went down quite a bit who came to me proactively and said, I had an illness. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really helpful, because it's like you've acknowledged it. Like I said from the beginning, just be honest.
Right.
But I certainly don't think you should let things go.
Yeah. You don't want to go from A- B+ to straight C's and for the entire year and never say anything and just be like, here's my final transcript. You're definitely going to get some questions about that probably.
Yeah, I think they're going to ask, but I do think it's unlikely they're going to rescind your offer based on that, unless they think you just don't care anymore.
Right. I think that's the message it sends is, okay, great, I'm in. I just don't have to worry about this. A few B's is probably fine, but you don't want to have C's and D's.
Well, and I think something to keep in mind is you're going to be going right into bar study. So you're going to have to, you want to stay in the right school mindset for, where you're going to have to be.
Absolutely. Well, unfortunately with that, we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And to everyone listening out there, hopefully you wrap up your summer on a nice high note and don't do anything stupid and get an offer. If you get a cold offer, you can write to me and I'll give you some advice on what to do about it. If you enjoyed this episode of the Law School Toolbox podcast, please take a second to leave a review and rating on iTunes or your favorite listening app because we would really appreciate it. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to Lee and Allison at lee@lawschooltoolbox.com or allison@lawschooltoolbox.com, or you can always contact us via our website contact form at lawschooltoolbox.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon.